Thank you very much for staying with us. This is the AM show, and we get into our big stories. Now, October has just started, and this means we're in the last trimester of the year, the last 3 months of 2023. Now, many expect government to achieve a couple of things before the year ends. Today, we dilate on that. We discuss those from a variety of sectors or angles on the AM show. You can also join us with your thoughts on what you expect from government towards or at or by the end of the year. Well, joining us, the first person joining us for this all-important conversation is Dr. Eric Bachi-Adam. He is lecturer, Department of Finance and Accounting at the University for Professional Studies, Accra. He joins the conversation. Doc, it's been a while now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben. It's been a while.
It has. It's good to have you in our company one more time. Let's start from the very start. What has been your appreciation of dynamics, especially economic dynamics? And you could veer into health, roads, and anything else, the state of the Tema motorway, among others. What, for you, has been the performance of government in these areas? Let's start with what has been done before we even get into what you expect to be done by close of year.
Thank you. So I will start by looking at what the government set itself to do in terms of the macroeconomic indicators. You know, what is on paper and what is the reality. When the government revised the budget in July, there are a couple of things that the government expected to do. Government want to tame inflation to about 31.3% by the close of the year. Currently, we are doing around 40.1 as at August.
True.
You know, which means that we still have a long way to go. If you are doing 40.1 and you want to go down around 31%, you have a long way to go. So generally, inflation is high. If inflation is high, prices of goods and services are also going to be expensive. And looking at the very low wage rate in Ghana, you know, Ghana is one of the countries with the lowest wage. You know, we have a minimum wage around 14.88, which is less than $2. I mean, and it seems that the average Ghanaian will be struggling within the Ghanaian economy. And relatively, government has done well in terms of exchange rate management. The first quarter of the year, government did around the depreciation was around about 6%, and it appreciated in the second quarter around about 0.12%, and the third quarter is the depreciation about around 1%. So generally, government is trying to manage the exchange rate in a certain way. But in the third quarter, usually when people are shopping for Christmas, importers will be buying goods and all that. If government don't take care, the inflation will go back. Exchange rate will also surge up. Therefore, there's a need for government to watch out in terms of the management of the exchange rate. And we are expecting the next tranche of the IMF money to drop by next month. So if this money comes, probably it will be able to stabilize it. Although it's not much, but it will be able to stabilize it before we get to December. Generally, in December, exchange rate will be stable because of the holiday effect. You know, during holidays, exchange rate dip, it goes down, and it's good for the economy. And more, the diaspora will be coming to celebrate Christmas, and there'll be more dollar in the system in December. So the government needs to watch the dollar. Is the crucial time to watch the dollar or the exchange rate volatility is in October and November. You know, we're expecting December to be generally fine. Now let's come to what is happening in the Ghanaian economy. Is it a case that these figures on paper translate to the average Ghanaian's life, you know, and what Ghanaians expected? What I am seeing is that Ghanaians have a very high expectation. You know, even recently with the health issues about the dialysis and Kareweh increments and all that. And there has been several
which Kareweh has rescinded, by the way.
Yes. That it has not received parliamentary approval. So
The surprising thing on that, though, is the fact that you can have the PRO for the institution come and say that this is it and give reasons for it, citing taxation, the removal of certain waivers and all of that. Then the CEO, who actually interacted with me, makes mention of the fact that these people were not sanctioned to bring to bear the increment. It's rather curious, and it was enforced with a notice. But anyway, that's the curiosity. Thank God it's been taken off.
But you see, that is the inconsistencies we have in terms of pricing. If the public have not made noise about these things, it should have been implemented anyway, and they will have justifiable reason, like one party is trying to defend, another party is trying to do damage control and all that, you know. But we should also be mindful that when we demand more from government, looking at the current situation, like some debate has been on this dialysis issue, that we should add it to the national health insurance scheme, we should cover it. And these schemes, national health insurance covering it, means that government needs a certain budget to be able to accommodate it. Therefore, the only way that government can accommodate is to probably increase the levy. And by increasing the levy means that there's going to be additional taxes. So there should be a balance between what the public expects and what government can offer. You know, for example, this year the rains have been pouring, and many roads, including where I stay, is very bad. Like you mentioned, the motorway is very bad. You know, if we're expecting more from the government in terms of development, then in a certain way, government also comes back to say that if you expect more development, the only way that the development can be achieved is through taxes. You know, because we have advised government from the beginning of the year that government should be cutting down capital expenditure in order to slow down borrowing, government debt. You know, so if government is going back to be able to meet all these promises, you know, there is a need for government to also increase taxes. But the question is that the previous taxes that the government has taken, has it merited the kind of development we see? If it does not merit the kind of development we see, then bringing also taxes will not augur well for the government. You know, I don't think that generally people don't want to pay taxes, but they cannot measure the rate of development with the taxes that have been paid. So government needs to be measured in terms of the taxes and against the development that we have in the country. So on the basis of road and healthcare and other infrastructure, I will say that the government has generally not met expectation, you know, and the rate of inflation expectation has not been met. And you could see when you interview the ordinary Ghanaian on the street that it is not easy for the average Ghanaian. So these are, I think, the few things that I think the government has not really met expectation, and there's more is desired, you know, going forward before the year ends. So what I would expect the government to do before we end this year is that.
Before we get into the expectations, okay, just a quick one. Since your forte is finance and accounting and economics in there, 31.3% is the projection. We want to tame inflation. We're standing at 40.1%. Is it feasible to bring it down in this last quarter to the 31.3% as projected by government? From where you sit, what do you think?
I doubt based on these reasons that the spending or consumer consumption goes up during this period. You know, so we even expect it to go up beyond the 40.1 that we recorded. You know, we are expecting a dip. You know, by September there will be a slight dip. But as to achieve the 31 targets this year, I doubt, especially going to December. You know, many importers and holiday makers are planning for the Christmas, and therefore I doubt if the government will be able to achieve that particular target. You know, generally I don't see the government achieving it.
Okay. All right. So you are now going to look at your expectations, and I'm sure a lot of them would be economy related or have a slant towards the economy. But just hold for me briefly. Let me also take the initial thoughts and performance of this administration this year from Edward Kareweh. He's General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union. Mr. Kareweh, very good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation once more.
Thank you, sir.
So, from where you sit, and I don't know whether I'm not mistaken, are you Dr. Kareweh now? Or I don't want to be on the wrong end of...
I'm Comrade Kareweh. I'm a unionist.
Okay, Comrade Kareweh.
Yes,
All right. So, with what has happened this year, there's been quite a lot to talk about, from the economy to health, with the many of our healthcare professionals leaving the country, to roads. The Tema motorway has been on our radar in recent times, to farming and everything in between. Before we get to what your expectations of this administration would be by end of year, how would you assess so far what has been done in the year? 9 months gone and the 10th month counting.
Well, sometimes it's very difficult to say it as it is, because the attitude of Ghanaians now is sometimes they expect you to be diplomatic, to say things when try to say that, oh, it will be good, when in actual fact it will not be good. Everything has gone wrong with us. We have lost control of everything. Nothing seems to be working. And if you are talking about a Tema motorway, look, we also, the few days ago when we had a heavy downpour, between Malam to Kaswa, I'm telling you, it was very terrible, very, very terrible. And nothing is seen being done to address the situation. We are not talking about the problem. We are talking about also what is being done to address the problem. So it's one problem to another, one part of the city to another, one part of the country to another. We virtually seem not to be doing anything to address those problems. And there are no problems that we are not aware of. There are problems that are with us. And again, it makes one sometimes have to think about losing hope in the future. But of course, we can't lose hope. And when you follow this media, you will find out that the young people of this country have totally lost hope. And some are just going out, not that they are unpatriotic, but look, they sit down and analyze the situation and they see that there's no hope for them in life. For some of us who have already got jobs, if tomorrow I lose my job, I will know that in my lifetime I've ever worked. But you can imagine a young person who has completed the university, has struggled in the university. All of us know what it means to go to university, struggle to complete the university. And then, with all the expectations and all the sacrifices they are ready to make this country what it is, eventually there's no hope for them. So really, we just have to accept that things are not going right, and I think to see how we can reverse it. So certainly, life is very hard, and it's not just that life is only hard. It's just that you don't see what is being done to address the problem.
Well, but are there any positives? Are there any things that on the back of COVID-19, the Russia-Ukrainian war, inflation and everything in between, going to the IMF, have you seen any positives this year that you can speak of? It can't be all negative, can it?
Well, you see, sometimes, I don't know, people want to say that there's always two sides to a coin. At a particular time, there's no two sides to a coin. At another time, there can be. That is when you work hard, you can reverse the phase that we are looking at. But we are looking at the phase that we have today. The face of Ghana today is pathetic. Look, some of us have just had the opportunity to travel out of the country, and my few travels out of the country, I just see that Ghana is a joke. You know, I even think that Accra doesn't befit the city that is meant for Ghana, the capital city. You know, we sit in Ghana, we talk and we fight over pettiness, issues that do not promote development. Look, we implement policies that really destroy our people. And sometimes I ask, why do we do this to our own people? Why? They are our brothers, they are our sisters, we are giving birth to them, and the future of the children. Just because we have been privileged today to have jobs, and then we make decisions, and we now say that we close the door to people who are yet to get jobs and be at our level. Look, I read this book, Taking Away the Ladder, which is looking at development history in perspective by Hajun Chang many years. Today, I was very much unhappy about the way things have been couched by the developed countries against us. But today, I've seen that even we do the same to our own people. If we have got jobs today, why don't we try to create jobs and maintain those jobs for people that are yet to be born or have been born to come in? Look, as for the IMF, you see, some of us, and I'm very much happy that we made this point clearly that the solution to Ghana's problem is not IMF. Look, we got to a point, people say, oh, there was no alternative. There's always an alternative. We are just simply not ready to take the alternative. If you're not ready to take the alternative, you say that there's no alternative. Look, because of IMF, look at the type of fight we have gotten. The domestic bond restructuring and all matter of things, the fight we had in Parliament. Today, you can see that Ghana is united. Look, because of IMF, look at how can a whole government, we know this government campaigned and won elections based on creating jobs for the people of this country. I know this government will not shy away from creating jobs. But it's the same government now saying that, look, I'm not going to employ anybody at all. You can't think that this is what the government is thinking. This is just IMF conditionality. Look, so if you look at what we are doing to ourselves, look, why should we sit down and destroy our own environment to the point where today we have no control over Galamsey? We are only talking that we have no control over the Galamsey because we are participating in it. You know, officials, we all know what is happening and what is the future of Ghana come the next 10 years. The way Galamsey is going on, almost about 13 regions of the country are engaged in Galamsey. You destroy the future. Look, it's, I have nowhere to go. I'm certainly not a young person like that. But given my exposure, if I were a young person, I would think about leaving this country. So it's no. When we drive the young people to leave this country, we should be ashamed. Somebody should be accountable for that. Sometimes I hear some professionals trying to say that, oh, you know, because doctors and then nurses need to have second degree, they need to have specialization, that's why they go out. It's not just because the economy is not good. Why can't we put those institutions in Ghana?
Right.
So certainly we are not managing our economy well. And you can see it is not just because we are talking, but it's because really people are losing hope.
Doc, for you, from your end, are there any positives that you can highlight?
No, when you talk about positives, what do you want me to say? You want me to say that? Oh,
so I'm actually this question is not for you. I'm referring to Dr. Yadom.
Okay, so that's okay.
Right. Doc, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Did you get the question?
Yes, I got the question. The positive I can highlight this year for the government is in terms of the exchange rate management. Relative to last year, I think this year has been managed properly, you know, and to be able to keep inflation within the, exchange rate within that 11.6 cedis per dollar, I think it's something that the government has done well. But then they took us there. So I mean, this year is actually a damage control year for the government to be able to correct the wrongs and be able to set the economy back to its foot. So I think that's the only thing I can say that the government has done relatively well in the management of the exchange rate. But there are more to be done. More is deserved from the government. If you may allow me to go into my expectations.
Yes, that's the next point. So you can go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, you may. I would say that we should brace ourselves for one of the worst Christmas for the year.
We should brace ourselves for one of the worst Christmas times of
within the Akufo-Addo's government from 2017 to now. We should brace ourselves for it, and we shouldn't expect much. So if you have any money, don't go shopping. Keep it for school fees early next year. Because things are not going to be better, and that the government can't do much. The government is trying to be able to set the economy properly, which the government will not be able to do even within the next 4 years. So it's not going to be easy.
But a quick interjection. From where you sit, you know that if people don't spend, and if the action of selling and buying do not happen, the economy is going to shrink. It's going to have an impact. I mean, and especially around this time, people bring in lots of goods from different parts of the world because of the Yuletide, the Christmas season. If this stuff doesn't go, it's going to lead to a stagnation of the economy. So when you say people shouldn't buy, they should hold on to their funds, what are you saying? Basically, what do you mean?
Good. So if people don't buy, what it means is that, number one, it will even help the government to achieve its inflation target, which generally it's not possible, but then it will be able to slow down inflation. Now, when people don't, you can't save forever. So we save to invest. So one of the ways of looking at investment is look at the rate of savings. So if you don't spend or you're able to save for this year, what it means is that going into next year, you'll be able to have sufficient funds to be able to manage your household expenditure, But if you go shopping and you are hoping, we spend with the hope that we'll receive. But there's no hope. I was on your show when the betting was introduced. You interview one young man and you ask him, why does he bet? And he said that betting gives hope. Betting gives hope because there's a hope that you nearly won or you will be able to win. So they keep betting. So what many people are looking for is hope. So if you are spending against hope that there will be next income coming, or your income is likely to go up or you are likely to get something. But here is the case that there's almost nothing to hope for. There's nothing. Where I said, many young people, the moment they complete school, the next thing is to go back to school. Why do people like going to school? They are not going to school because they like going to school, because there's no job. So while they are waiting and they are searching for a job, they want to develop themselves. They want to go back to school. So a lot of young people are having masters. They don't have no work experience.
I know of people with PhDs, no work experience, and now they are struggling to get work. And that was one thing that getting out of school in Ghana, I had to consciously, even before, you try and do some work here and there so that your CV is not bare. Because you see some CVs, and I've had the opportunity of seeing some of them, it's all education, no real work. And it's because of what you're talking about.
Exactly. And you see, it is not that they don't want to work. We send students on internship. They don't get any place to do internship. Just to do their service for free. Nobody wants to. There's no job for them. You go to many of these government institutions and even private organizations, a job that one person is supposed to do, 10 people are doing it. So they have high wage bill. Their labor cost is going up, and they're unable to sustain. So practically, if we ask people to get work experience, where are they going to get a work experience from? Who is going to hire them? Even when they want to offer their services for free for internships. I mean, so we are heading towards a dangerous path. And I ask myself, if the leaders of today have been able to live their dreams, the people who are in government today, a certain type of government created an environment for them to be able to live their dreams, probably to save and go into politics or save to be able to invest. Are they creating that kind of enabling environment for young people today to be able to also live their dreams in the future to come? And that is very bad. If young people are losing hope and they cannot, the future is not guaranteed. Now, the government will talk about the fact that it has provided free education. Just yesterday, I met a young guy who has come from holidays. Now, I was asking him, when is he going back to school? He says that he has been told till further notice. I said, in secondary school, until further notice, you don't know when you're going back to school. What is the essence of the free SHS? I mean, I should be able to know that I've come to spend even long vac, and I'm going back next month, next 2 months. But you've been told to further notice. It means that the young person is going to stay in the house for the next 3 months or more. And staying in the house for the next 3 months is bringing back economic difficulty to household, because you may have to engage a private teacher. You may have to engage those young people so that they will not go roaming in the community, and doing things that will not help their future. So I think that the policy inconsistency that we are experiencing, makes it difficult for us for the young people of today to have hope, to believe that let's brace ourselves, let's wait. No, we've gone through COVID, we've gone through Ukraine war, we've gone through this and that, but let's wait, there's a better tomorrow. But we do not see that better tomorrow coming, So in terms of expectation, I don't expect much for the remaining 3 months. We can only hope against hope that we'll be able to cross this year, and 2024 will be better. We're expecting the minister to read the budget. Probably there will be hope for 2024, but as for 2023, I don't see any hope for the ordinary Ghanaian on the street.
You don't see any hope, light at the end of the tunnel? So in terms of taxes, you spoke about betting, and I was going to go there. Now, more and more sectors of the economy are being taxed. Some would say, yes, a country is built on taxes. But some also say, from where you sit, you know very well, if you tax people into the ground, people will simply start finding mechanisms of, evading tax. Tax avoidance is legal, but tax evasion is not. Then there is, recently now we're talking about celebrity taxes. I don't know whether you heard, and that has raised another storm. But you put that side by side with the fact that in terms of our spending, in 2 months, we've spent about 6.3 billion. And we've added that to the public debt, so to speak. And some have asked whether even as we've gone to the IMF, we are doing the right things in order to create that sort of economic resurgence we need.
All right. So in terms of government taxes, talking about the betting taxes and the celebrity taxes, I have said that the betting taxes, government is not taxing it for moral reasons. So usually when you bring the betting issue, what people say is that, young people are going into betting and betting is not the way and all that. It is not true that the government cares so much about morals. If government cares so much about morals, there's a backdoor to betting. That will stop the number of companies that are registering. We have more betting companies in Ghana than Nigeria. So it is not because government care about morals, but because government want to find a way to squeeze more money. That's why they are going into betting, taxing betting companies and individuals. Now, with the celebrity taxes, I think that taxing should be progressive. If you're earning more, you should be able to pay more. So I don't see much wrong with it, but usually the angle that the government comes from it, and it makes it look like he's hunting a particular group of people, So it should be a general thing that if you have a certain status, you should be able to pay more. if we go back to the origin of taxes, the origin of taxes based on the story of Robin Hood. Robin Hood used to rob the rich to settle the poor. That is the basis for taxing. So taxing was generally to take from the rich so that we can develop the economy and the poor will benefit. But in Ghana's taxes, I think the poor suffers more relatively because the poor don't have much, to be able to afford affordables, the basic things in life. So taxing more people we should have a certain concern, especially if we have minimum wage of about 14.88, and many first.
And how much is even a loaf of bread?
A loaf of bread. Yeah. So your minimum wage can buy a loaf of bread. It cannot afford just bread, and the average first degree end around 1,500 or less. With the transportation cost, accommodation, it means that you can't live in Ghana as a young person starting life. You cannot. You are going to rent. You've completed university. You want to start life. You need accommodation. Your landlord is demanding 2-year rent. Where are you going to get the 2 years from? The rent from 2 years? You need to pay for utilities. You need to be able to settle down. So it is not easy for the young person to live in Ghana. And these are the realities that the politicians should agree and let us let us find a way to settle it. But then politicians will be talking about government is building roads, government is investing in this, government is investing in that. You see, one of the ways that corruption increases is in capital expenditure. Because when government invests or spend more in capital expenditure, we hear about contract being inflated. If you check the auditor's reports and all that, it shows that the quantum of money that goes into the road, that we don't get the value for money. So a road that we could have paid about, let's say, 50 million, we end up paying 100 million for the same road. So if you're not getting value for money and you want to be charging taxes in the name of providing development, then the people will not readily accept. Elsewhere, people who travel elsewhere don't complain much about the taxes because they can see with their eyes what the money is, the taxes that they are collecting, where it is going. Therefore, you are confident in the government that when you pay your taxes, it goes into development. So people won't pay taxes because government is doing advert encouraging people to pay taxes. People will pay taxes when they see that there is a conscious effort from the government to be able to put the money into sectors that can inure to their benefit. So if we lump so much taxes on Ghanaians, they will find an alternative. I mean, like government introduced the e-levy, thinking that the government is going to rake so much money. They have so much hope. And even against that, they were saying they were not going to go to IMF when the e-levy is introduced. And people find a way, or mobile money users find a way of going around it. That made the government not to achieve the revenue expectation. So in achieving government revenue targets or revenue consolidation, government should not only be focusing on the front-loaded approach where the burden is pushed on the ordinary Ghanaian,
right.
But the government can also look at a way of improving what the revenue from the taxes are used for.
All right. Let me just hold your horses. Let me also introduce into the conversation Dr. Peter Anti. Later, Dr. Kareweh, I'll come to you, Comrade Kareweh. I'll come to you as well for your thinking of what government should do by end of year. But Dr. Peter Anti is Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies. Dr. Anti, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, man. How are you?
We're doing what we can. I hope you're well.
I'm fine, sir. Thank you.
Great to hear. For you, how has government performed this year? And what are some of the things that you would like to see by end of year? On education, I know you'll talk about that, but on myriad other issues, road networks, Galamsey, education, health, what's your take?
All right, thank you very much. For me, I think that everything that has happened this year can be summed up in in a simple word, as it's been challenging for the government, especially in the education front. You would agree with me that although a lot of improvements have been made in that area, and when I say that, I'm talking about improvement in infrastructure, improvement in access to education at the secondary level, talking about the improvement in technical and vocational education. I'm talking about improvement in science and technology, which seems to be one of the highlights for the Ministry of Education. You see that there have been conscious efforts from the ministry to ensure that STEM is placed up there. I can also see an improvement in the curriculum development process. So, although it's not been perfect, we have witnessed changes in curriculum from the basic to the junior high school. I mean, from the primary to the junior high school and the senior high school, and that is something that we need to commend the government for. And all these things have happened within the year. Of course, latter part last year was when the junior high school curriculum was almost finalized, and this year there's been a development of the senior high school curriculum. So there's been some considerable work done, but in the midst of all these improvements, we have seen challenges emanating from the handling of, first and foremost, the feeding situation in our various secondary education level. You will see that there have been various instances where schools had to complain of shortage of food, and in certain areas we have seen the directive from school authorities that they might close down schools. And that is a big worry, because whilst you are doing some of the good things, these things come in and they can be a stumbling block to the progress that you are making as a country. So it's the issue of feeding in our various education institutions have come out strongly. We have also seen teachers complaining. Of course, not only this year, but this year we saw a lot of complaints coming from teachers in terms of their total welfare. They have talked about issues relating to their things that they need to use to be able, I mean, the tools that they need to be able to perform their mandate as teachers in our various educational institutions. We have seen NAGRADS, we have seen NATS, we have seen CCT coming out forcefully to demand what is due them. We have seen various unions at the tertiary level also coming out to demand forcefully what is due them. The Senior Staff Association of Ghana, we have seen TEWU, we have seen GAO, all these people coming out to demand what is due them. So there has been some turbulence in the education front, and we have seen challenges in infrastructure. We have seen a lack of commitment to improving basic education in Ghana. And when we talk about the basic education, we are not saying this because we recognize a reduction in the budget allocation to that particular sector. We are saying this also because in the NPP manifesto for 2020, they made it clear that this year, I mean, this for their second term, Gallup will be something that they will pay particular attention to. But if you are on the field, like myself, doing research and talking to teachers, you will see the state of even the projects that we call Gallup, which was meant to uplift the selected basic schools that we have in Ghana. So basic education at that level have been left in disarray, and we think that it's one of the low points of the Ministry of Education, and we're hoping that as they strategize for the last quarter of the year and plan for next year, they would be thinking through how they will address this big challenge at the basic level. So for me, it's been both good and bad. But if you put it together, you would realize that the foundation of the education system, the things that will need to propel the improvements and the reforms that you are making seems to be not giving the needed attention. So you will do the reforms and you will do all those things that you want to do. But then when you don't take care of the teachers, when you don't provide the needed resources at the foundation level, at the basic education level, if you are not careful, all these investments that you are making in terms of curriculum reforms, trying to improve infrastructure at the senior high school level, and so on and so forth, would not yield the needed results.
All right. I will come back to you for more when it comes to the core expectations by end of year. Let me come back to Mr. Kareweh. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I'm there, sir.
Great. So in terms of agriculture, of course, you spoke generally about a number of things, but especially in terms of agriculture, what would be your expectations before the end of the year? There are some commodities that have, even when they were in season, the cost was so high. And now we're getting to Christmas. People will eat, people will have, festive events. Dr. Boachi Adam says, don't spend because next year is going to be tricky. The end of year is going to be hard. Things are not going to be in tip-top shape anytime soon. So don't spend. Save rather and spend on education, your school fees and all of that from the start of next year. We know the start of every year is hard. But in terms of agriculture, what are your expectations?
Well, I sometimes wonder whether we do the basic economics. People in this country have tried to save, and what has happened to their money? When you talk about savings, should the people put the money in their rooms? Is that what we call savings? Or we should put it in the bank so that it can be available for investors to borrow and invest? When you put it in the bank, what has become of it? Look, the safest place to put your money was the bonds. And today, we are still restructuring the bonds and ending. People are really, really don't know where to save. But the agricultural sector is so pathetic. And I don't know.
Cocoa farmers, before you move on, cocoa farmers have got, the increments that they received recently. I think it's $211 higher than the Ivory Coast has now announced its own. It's about 211. Yes, the final newspaper corroborates that. Cocoa farmers in Ghana enjoy $211 more per ton than their Ivorian counterparts. That's something to celebrate, right?
Well, why do we think that when we increase producer price more than Cote d'Ivoire should be something to celebrate and the farmers should celebrate for that? The farmer in Ghana does not live in Cote d'Ivoire, does not spend in Cote d'Ivoire. The farmer in Ghana will look at his income vis-a-vis his expenditure. If the expenditure is very high, and you even now want to say, oh, I've done you good, or you are better off because your income is higher than that of Cote d'Ivoire or another country. What about cost of living? So I don't know where this comparison is coming from. You see, and that is one of the things that we always look for excuses instead of solving the problem. I am a Ghanaian. I live in Ghana. How many of our farmers even know where Cote d'Ivoire is? So what is the comparison between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire? But then they will say that, when the price is high, it will prevent farmers from smuggling their cocoa to Cote d'Ivoire. Price is at the end of the whole value chain, but it all starts with production. And I'm saying that, you see, I think 2 or 3 years back, there was this whole concern about the Chinese getting involved in cocoa production. And it was like, no, Ghana will lose it. And I'm saying, yes, why not? Look at the way we have been producing cocoa in this country. Today, as we speak, we don't even have a simple machine that will assist farmers so that when they harvest their cocoa pods, they can just pour it there and the machine will scoop out the beans. In fact, if you have 1,000 pots, you have to count them one by one by breaking through them with your cutlass to scoop out the beans. We can't continue cocoa production like this. Well, the country will just modernize their production system and they will be ahead of it. So that is one. We are not modernizing cocoa production in this country enough. Two, look, if you go to wherever cocoa is produced, generally you also find gold there. And if you look at the average age of the farmer who is in cocoa, they are around 45 years. The youth are ready, just not ready to go into cocoa. The alternative is what? Galamsey. Now, it's not that all of us must go into cocoa production. Of course, people should have the right to go into cocoa production or go into any other production. But here is the case that they are going into Galamsey, which causes permanent and irreversible destruction to agricultural infrastructure in this country, including cocoa production. We are all aware that, look, these Galamseyers have been able to divert the course of rivers, not only destroying marine life or aquatic life in the river, but divert the course of rivers. Look, the Galamsey leaves behind is destruction that government has not got the capacity and the technology and resources to reclaim the land. Government doesn't have it. So what is happening to agriculture is that much as we'll be looking at good policy, policy is based on your ability to produce. Now, so Galamsey is destroying the basic infrastructure that will be used for agriculture in the future. So you can see that not only for this year, but the next 10 years, the rate at which we are destroying our agricultural land by Galamsey, then it means that there will not be agriculture in the next 10 years. And cocoa is already suffering because
wait, Mr. Kareweh, just hold it for me. You say there will not be agriculture in Ghana in the next 10 years with the way we're doing it?
When I'm talking about there will not be agriculture in the next 10 years, I'm just meaning that the capacity of the country today to engage in agriculture and the rate, the level of agriculture we have today would be reduced in the next 10 years. We are just not, we don't want to think ahead. Everything is just about now. Everything's about now. And I'm seeing that this is a complete state failure. How can a whole state be there and you cannot control illegality in the country? Just because, your media house and other media houses have come out, risked their lives. Look, to go into those areas, to come out with documentation, evidence for government to act on. How has government dealt with that? How has government dealt with that? And sometimes I want to be a journalist. Sometimes I think that it's not worth it. Because in the sense that people will risk their lives, bring out all this information, and nothing would happen about it. So that's our point. The second point is that, with climate change, the weather is unpredictable. And agriculture in Ghana has been largely on welfare agriculture. We cannot continue that way. Look, this government came out with policies that one village, one dam, that they are making sure that every village has got a dam for agricultural purpose. Some of us asked questions from the beginning to find out how much it will cost and how they were going to do that. They brushed this out and continued. Today, let the government now talk about the one village, one dam. Look, we are not sitting here talking because we just want to hold government on. But the people on the ground, if they are able to produce with their dams, why not? Look, it gives them good life in wherever they are. Given my job, I roam around the whole country in rural areas. And I'm telling you that when you go and look into their faces, you just feel
So if I asked you, in terms of food sustainability, food security ahead of end of year, when people will party, people will celebrate Christmas, what would you tell me? How food secure are we?
Well, again, I just talk about. I'm talking about rain-fed agriculture. We depend largely on nature. The rains so far, particularly in the northern part of the country, the rains are not too bad. And this year, government has not invested directly in fertilizer inputs and the rest. They buy their fertilizer from the market. Things are good that come in time that the farmers want, and the quantities and so on are stored their crops. Of course, you can have a minimum increase in yield. We all know, and the professor Kareweh Adam indicated, we all know that when it gets to Christmas season, prices of goods go up. It's just a natural consumption pattern, and we should expect that this will go up. And we also know that food inflation is the major contributor to national inflation. So again, from now on, December, what are we going to do to be able to bring down food inflation? We are not going to do anything in terms of policy. Whatever will happen from now until the end of the year is not because of policy. It's because nature has been good to us. Because we have not invested in agriculture as a state for the year. You need to invest, and then this time it's about harvesting from now on to December. It's going to be harvesting for both the southern sector and the northern sector. So you expect the price of stuff to come down a little. But we have seen that for the past 2 years or 3 years, that it doesn't work that way again. Where during the harvesting season, prices of foodstuffs come down. We have seen a trend that even in the harvesting season, prices of foodstuffs do go up. So we don't expect a dramatic change in the situation as we find it now, just because we are getting to the end of the year.
I'll come to you with two questions to wrap the conversation. The final one will give an assessment of what you see. But coming back to Dr. Anti, Dr. Kareweh Adam, just hold for me. I'll come to you with something specific. Dr. Anti, because you joined the conversation late, what would be your core expectations in respect of education before end of year?
I mean, to be very frank with you, I think that if I am an advisor to the minister and the government, I will tell them that there's no need to do any new thing at this time. I think it is time to take stock. You see, and let me be a little bit frank here. Next year is an election year. There are a lot of things that have been said in the NPP manifesto that would be brought to the public and scrutinized to see whether the achievements of the government or the promise of the government match the achievements that they would want to tout. So if I'm strategizing, I will tell the Ministry of Education not to do any new thing. They should use the last quarter of the year to take stock of the things that they said they would do for the past 3 years, and then they move into food year when we enter 2024, so that they will know what they have been able to do for the past 3 years, and then they will know what is left. And then in 2024, they would now have ways and means to achieve what is left to be achieved. And that is what I'm expecting. I don't expect any new thing to be done from now to the end of the year. I think that it is a good period to take stock, to look at what NASIA is doing, to look at what NTC is doing, to look at what NACA is doing, to look at what the Library Board is doing, to look at what Sendelos is doing, to look at what all the other agencies are doing, and then to take stock, present a comprehensive report to the ministry, and then they'll sit on it and then strategize as they move into the final year of their administration.
Right. Just a quick thought on this. NAGRAT in recent times has called for the immediate abolition of the double track system and a reversion to the 3-term calendar. What do you think about that? That can be done, right? But is it something in the right direction?
Sure. You see, and I normally have problems with my friends in the teacher union, because we started this fight long ago when they wanted to convert the primary level and then the junior high school level from the trimester to the semester. I remember we had serious interactions on that, press releases, and all those things to ensure that they don't do that, because that level of education and the kind of semester system that we wanted to introduce would not have yielded any good results in terms of learning outcomes. So we said a lot, and the ministry listened. I was thinking that this should have been extended to the senior high school level, because the reasons that were given in terms of infrastructure, in terms of aligning the calendar with the university calendar to ensure that the teachers are able to pursue their science-rich programs could all have been dealt with in a different way. So I agree with Nagrat. We should go back to the trimester system, give enough room for the students to rest, and then enough time for the students to also be on campus, and ensure that this system, where now they are not even doing double track, what they are doing is called a transitional calendar. This transitional calendar, where Form 1s and Form 2s are in school, Form 3s are in the house, Form 3s and Form 2s are in school, Form 1s are in the house, it's dealt with. But what I do not agree with Nagrat, and I have to be very frank with them, is that the idea of reducing the contact period from 1 hour to 40 minutes would not yield the needed result, because 40 minutes for a lesson is difficult for a teacher to achieve much, especially when we are pushing in the new curriculum to ensure that the teacher adopts transformative pedagogies, the teacher adopts creative pedagogies. You cannot use 40 minutes to achieve much. So I think that the 1 hour for one period should be maintained, but then we should reset to the trimester system.
And how quickly do you think that can be done?
Well,
to bring back the trimester system very briefly.
How
quickly?
The academic year comes to an end, and I'm thinking that this should happen when we resume school next year. I believe that when the first years are admitting, we should start with them. I don't know how the ministry would take this, and you know the system we are running now. It's difficult for some of our big men to take some of these advice, and also I don't know the extent to which Nagrat is ready to push this. But I think that in the just not too distant future, the academic calendar should be reversed to the trimester system, but the 1 hour period for each lesson should be maintained.
All right. There's this message that comes through, I think, in response to some of what you've said, Mr. Kareweh. Samuel Ebugani says, we have invented a technology that will help and increase productivity in extracting the cocoa beans from the pods, but we hardly get support to develop the machine. Maybe you could share your number with me, Samuel, and I'll patch it through to the likes of Edward Kareweh, and we can see what can be done. Are you aware of such technology, though? Mr. Kareweh, they are in existence, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited that you have young men and women who are getting innovative, because they invent a number of things here. But like the message has shown, who is taking that invention to commercialize it, to make it big, to support farmers?
Right.
We hope that this time around they will do it. And you are aware of many inventions that have taken place in our universities to solve our problems. Yet they have been made to die at birth because they don't get support. So I hope this time around government is listening, and they'll add up to that. And we should get in contact and see how we can get this thing done.
All right. My final comments to you, gentlemen, or my final question. I'm going to have you assess, and I'll start with you, Dr. Boakye Yadom. For you, Mr. Kareweh, you will do the agricultural sector, and for Dr. Anti, the educational sector. When you look at these sectors, so to Dr. Boakye Yadom, the economy and financial management, basically, this year, how would you rate government's performance on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how it has fared, and why would you give that rating? When it comes to Dr. Anti on education, I would also like you to tell us a bit about how you feel about the latest Times Higher Education ranking of the UCC, where you lecture. But let me start with Dr. Boakye Yadom. Hello, Doc. Please unmute, Dr. Boakye Yadom.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you now.
Yes. So in terms of the macroeconomic indicators, on the face of exchange rate, inflation, and the interest rate, on a scale of 0 to 10, I'll give the government 5. But I should say that the translation will take some time for us to feel the the relative stability in those macroeconomic indicators we are experiencing. And therefore, more needs to be done, especially in ending the year. And I want to quickly add that the government has managed the energy and the energy sector well. That is what is causing factories to keep running, because there's light. If factories are not running, expectation in GDP growth and all that will not be realized. And whatever the government did to keep the light on, the government should keep it up, for factories to keep running, for productivity. And I will say that the government should also strengthen efforts in connecting funds to markets so that the food inflation will reduce. Mr. Kareweh mentioned that usually in the harvest season, we still experience inflation. Sorry, food prices still go up. It goes up because although supply side has increased, but how to get them to the market becomes a problem. So they either stay on the farms and get rotten, or they are transported at a very high cost because fuel prices have gone up. So if government can close that gap, in ensuring that we have relative stable exchange rate like the government has done within the year, which also feed into fuel prices. To be able to keep fuel prices at a stable, if not down, at a stable price, we can transport farm produce to market at a relatively cheaper prices, so that we can experience a certain reduction in the pocket of the ordinary Ghanaian. So the disconnection between what is being produced and what is being sold on the market. The policy must be taught wholly, so that the benefit and the work that the government is putting into it, we will be able to realize it. So generally, in terms of the macroeconomic indicators, government is doing something good, and it should be, the government should keep it up, and that the government should not also promise so much. It will be slow, it will be painful. So if government promises so much, it raises expectation, and it almost feels like when we compare with what government has promised and what is being done, it appears like government has not done anything. The reason why there's a lot of backlash is because of the expectation that government gave us as compared to what we are experiencing. But if the government has not promised so much, and what we are relative to what we expect, we would have said the government has done well. But I think that 50% score means that it's a marginal pass, and the government needs to do more to be able to end the year 2023. Ben.
5 over 10, 50%. Edward Kareweh, what would be your score in the agri sector?
Well, let me thank Bachiano. I'm also under to share the glory with the University of Cape Coast, because I'm an alumnus of that university.
Congratulations to you as well, then.
Yeah, so I'm very much happy for the performance of the university. I think we have little to expect from agriculture into the future, and particularly into the end of the year, because if you look at agriculture, we have reached a stage of production that the fate of the outcome is already determined. There cannot be any intervention now that will change the outcomes, because these are crops, and they are some stages. When they reach a certain stage, you cannot do much to change their fortunes or the outcome. So we should not expect much from agriculture, because my saddest point is, come next year, this time we may still come to be talking again about things that we have identified today. What I think we should do is to invest more in agriculture, because even if the government is broke and then we are under IMF and then we are constraining production in other areas, especially in other areas, not agriculture, I also want government to move out. There are many, many companies that are working hard in the rural areas, and unfortunately, no government official has even visited them. When I talk about government officials, I'm not talking about those at the local level like DCs and so on. I'm talking about people in the Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Agriculture, and so on.
Right.
There are also government policies that are seriously undermining agriculture. For instance, in Ghana, anything you produce that is good, you are free to export it. There are companies that have built the one district, one factory, and they cannot even get the raw materials to feed the factory.
Right.
Yet, government allows those products or produce to be exported. So there must be a ban on all these things.
Okay, so all those points are being made. For the sake of time, what then would be your score?
Well, I come from UCC as a product there. I cannot give government more than a D, just a marginal pass. In fact, I will give them 49%. It's a failure. They don't. Government has failed. Agriculture has failed. I'll give them 49%. They are not even up to the 50%.
So in agric, you say government has failed. You give them 4.9 out of 10, the equivalent of 49%, and you say government has failed.
Yes, it has failed because phase one has the plan for food and jobs, creating markets here and there, saying that it's 100% successful. Is what and what. Look, what is there to show? There's nothing. So government has failed in agriculture.
Let me come to Dr. Anti. You'll have the final word from the educational perspective. What would you say briefly, and what would be your score?
Well, I think a lot have been achieved in that sector. I have said that already. There has been serious challenges too. So they might cancel out. I would, without explaining the metrics and everything, I would want to give them 65% in the education sector. I think there's more room for improvement. And if they continue to listen to some of the things that have been said and a lot of the research work that have been made available to them, we'll be able to move the education sector far ahead of where we are now. But a lot have been achieved in that sector. I must be frank.
UCC?
Yeah, that is a good news. You know, when you look at top 10 universities in Africa, it's only UCC that finds itself in there. It's dominated by universities in South Africa. And that is a little bit disheartening.
And you are sticking to the Times Higher Education metric.
Exactly. That is the standard, you know. So we have to encourage our sister universities to up their game. If you look at the metrics of their ranking, in terms of teaching, we ranked high. In terms of research, we ranked high. In terms of research quality, we ranked high. Research environment, we ranked high. It is only in industry that KNUST took the lead. And then when it comes to international outlook, Eugene was up there. But when you put all of them together, you would see that we are doing something right. And I'll use this opportunity to say congratulations to the Vice Chancellor, the Chancellor, the senior colleagues, and everybody from the University of Cape Coast. I hope that we'll continue to push the frontiers of education in Ghana, in Africa, and in the world. And very soon, you will see that we would be able to top Africa too.
Dr. Peter Anti is Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies. Thank you, sir, for joining the conversation. We also had Edward Kareweh he is the General Secretary of the General Agriculture Workers Union. Thank you, sir, for joining the conversation. Together with Dr. Eric Boachey-Yadom, Lecturer, Department of Finance and Accounting at the University of Professional Studies, Accra. Well, that's how we hang our boots on the first end of the conversation for this morning. But still to come, that conversation I was just teasing out. The University of Cape Coast, according to the Times Higher Education, best university in Ghana, best in West Africa, slipping to 7th in Africa. But that's quite a good outing, again, on the Times Higher Education scoreboard. We'll be having a conversation on that Also look forward to that conversation on NGO Maxim Nyansa and how they are using their not-for-profit organization to help young people attain IT skills in Ghana. Those conversations still to come on the AM Show.